Hello everyone. We're going to have a quick discussion video today, but this is a topic that has been circulating, and with all the latest news, this does seem to maybe be the case. We're going to be talking about what may actually be the reason why Nintendo has been waiting so long to have a big Nintendo Direct. The last time we got a big Nintendo Direct, and I mean the full showcase of a combination of first-party offerings and third-party offerings, where you have several new announcements to be releasing in the coming months, including usually that big final showcase game at the end. We haven't gotten that since last September. And what's made this really a head-scratcher is that we are so early on to the Nintendo Switch 2 era, you think Nintendo would want to come out swinging here and really show us all they got. And they haven't done that. Not yet, at least, for this year of 2026. And you would think Nintendo would want to announce the big exciting things that are coming down the road to get more people interested in picking up the Switch 2. So why exactly have they not done this? Well, that's what we're going to be diving into today, talking about what Nintendo has been announcing, how they've been handling it, and with what they have planned, why they're doing things in the way they are. Now, if you do find yourself enjoying my videos, I would very much appreciate your support, subscribing if you haven't already. So the last 24 hours or so have really put an emphasis on what's been going on. So today, we got previews for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. And before we had gotten the last trailer for it on Mario Day before Mario Day, I was actually cautiously optimistic about Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. I was thinking there was a solid chance I would be picking this game up. But once I saw that trailer, it's not to say that what was there was bad, but it didn't really feel like it was for me personally. Even though I do appreciate the idea of exploring around these environments, observing these different creatures, and experimenting with what you can do with them. Like, that sounds like a cool idea. But today, we got previews, people have played the game, and the common sentiment for the game is that it's a game made for children. That's been a common talking point. Now, some people will argue that, like previous Yoshi games, it's easy, very easy, but there's still challenge that can be found if you dig deeper into levels and such. And so maybe that's the case, and maybe that extra challenge that can be found, if it is indeed in there like previous Yoshi games, will make this worthwhile, and perhaps we'll learn more about that when reviews come out. But you don't take any damage in this game, and it seems to have a very casual emphasis. That said, I love the art style. Visually, this game is very striking. I'm loving what I'm seeing with the lighting, with the different plants and creatures involved, the consistency of the art book design, and it's not like I don't think it looks fun to play. I just have to wonder, does it look fun enough to play where I think I'll actually be drawn in and play it from beginning to end? And at least personally for me, at this point, I'm very skeptical of that. But I am more of a core-centric gamer. So games like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, Tomodachi Life, Pokopia, games that fall in line more with the cozy genre or very kid-friendly, those are typically not the games that I'm all about. But another game we did learn about that I do intend on picking up and do intend on completing entirely and easily believe I will is Splatoon Raiders. To me, that is definitely a far more core-centric game. And we learned a decent amount about it yesterday. We talked about it in yesterday's video. I'm very excited to hear that this game is a single-player focused adventure, but with co-op, both local and online. You each have to have your own independent systems. But still, this is looking like a very fun game. But interestingly, we also learned this is a budget title. $50 digitally, which I presume that means physically it will be $60. And this reminds us of the whole variable pricing. We saw it with Yoshi and Mysterious Book, we saw it with Rhythm Heaven, it looks like maybe, and now we're seeing with Splatoon Raiders. All these games are coming out cheaper than we thought they would be. This is the opposite of the Mario Kart World scenario where Nintendo released the game at $80 USD. But the main point I want to get to here is that we haven't really seen any sort of big budget, huge effort title from Nintendo. Not this year. It's not to say some of these games won't be successful. I imagine Tomodachi Life and Pokopia, because of their appeal to the cozy gamer, they certainly have a mainstream appeal. I think they're going to do really well. but there hasn't really been much that you would think would really carry the hype for a big general Nintendo Direct. And perhaps this has something to do with why we haven't gone the big Nintendo Direct. So just thinking about what Nintendo has given us information on throughout this year of 2026. We got the free update for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, we got the release date announcement for Tomodachi Life, we got the Shadow Drop Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, we got the Pokemon Presents, where we got the reveal for Pokemon Winds and Waves. It's not coming out until 2027. We learned about Pokemon Champions. I've actually been playing that recently, and I'm enjoying it personally as someone who has enjoyed competitive Pokemon in the past. It's a lot easier to get into. But then beyond that, we've had the Mario Bros. Wonder Switch 2 Edition, the news on Yoshi Mysterious Book, the recent quick update we got on Rhythm Heaven, and the trailer we just got yesterday for Splatoon Raiders. If you account for all of that, and the Pokemon stuff might have always been saved for Pokemon Presents, so maybe even exclude that, and you also account for the things we learned about in the Partner Showcase, would that make for a good Nintendo Direct? And I think it would be okay, but it wouldn't really have that real driver there. And all of these games were already known. They aren't new game announcements. So if Nintendo had had a general in February, and this is all it was, would it have been worthwhile? Maybe not. Unless they perhaps also included this other game that seemingly is going to be coming out in June. We've gone 2 games with dates for July already, Rhythm Heaven and Splatoon Raiders, and mysteriously June is still not answered for, and June is a popular release month by Nintendo. They've been pretty consistent with putting out at least something per month, and oftentimes they're putting out a couple things per month. You gotta think at least something's going to be announced for June. And we've had the reports from various places, with reputability, that Star Fox is going to be announced in this month of April. We just have a few days left, and it's supposed to come out in June. Let's say it's true that Star Fox is coming, and yeah, I do believe it's coming. If instead they had this announcement in a general Nintendo Direct with everything else we've mentioned back in February, would this have been a pretty good Direct? My opinion is, it would have been an overall underwhelming presentation. Some of you might be surprised at my opinion here, and let me make myself clear. If we had gotten news about Splatoon Raiders earlier, if we had learned about Star Fox earlier, if we had known with confidence back since February that Star Fox would be coming out in June, and that Splatoon Raiders would be coming out in July, and we had seen information about these games, it would have certainly made this wait a bit easier to digest. It would have given us more things to be excited about, to have conversations on. And I'm very much excited for these games, especially the idea of Star Fox. I am over the moon hyped for this possible announcement. But just thinking about what this hypothetical presentation would have in comparison to the 2 giant directs we got last year, I think there would be something left to be desired there. I have actually been on the record for saying the September Direct last year, I think, was a little bit underwhelming. And given how I felt about Nintendo's offerings for this first half of the year, I feel even more so justified in my opinion of that September Direct. But still, even then, that September Direct announced a lot of the new things, announced a lot of the things we're getting now. Now, something Nintendo could have done in a February Direct is announce everything we've mentioned here, and perhaps also tease a few things for the future, like maybe say, oh, there is something else, Zelda coming later this year, or something like that. That's a possibility. But also, maybe in February, Nintendo wasn't entirely certain what they wanted to do. Maybe there was a plan to have a bigger Direct in the early part of the year, but there were some shakeups behind the scenes. Like, we've heard that 3D Mario is not coming out till 2027, but perhaps initially they wanted 3D Mario to come out for this holiday, but as they're getting closer, they realized they were going to have to push it back a few months, maybe even more, and it wouldn't be quite ready. And so they had to adjust how they would be handling the Direct. Like, a 3D Mario reveal in lead up to a Mario Galaxy movie would make a lot of sense. That would certainly increase conversations around the movie and would have made for a big exciting Direct. But at the same time, I think you could argue that maybe they wouldn't have wanted to do that because they would have wanted us to focus on the movie. Now, my opinion, I feel like advertisement for the movie doesn't really get in the way of advertisement for games. But I do think there's something to the idea of the movie promoting Nintendo's games. We've talked a lot about the cross-promotional stuff, right? Nintendo's built up this core fan base who are going to watch the movies. But because of this core fan base who are going to watch these movies can see success and will then reach a larger audience of people who don't play every Nintendo game. And they'll see other things in there that will promote other games, so they'll go and play those. So everyone plays Mario, people are going to go watch the Mario movie, as they have been. But they put Star Fox in the movie. And so, right now we're looking at a scenario where Star Fox is being promoted quite heavily because of the movie. Star Fox is in the minds of many now. If Star Fox the game was announced before the movie had come out, things might not have worked in that way. And so maybe what Nintendo's actually going for here, even though from a content creator perspective, things have been a little grueling, in the grand scheme of things, their plan has been to carry out all the things they had planned for this first half of the year, and put out the movie, promote Star Fox, so they can then turn around, have this epic Star Fox announcement for it to come out in June. That's the idea. And so because of that, maybe they would not have even wanted to have included Star Fox in a general direct earlier. Maybe they've really wanted to handle things in this way because they really wanted to push Star Fox. And they thought this would be better than just announcing Star Fox in a February direct and then just have us waiting until June for it to come out. But also, what then happens is that when we do get to June, when we believe we'll finally get the big direct, the big presentation, if you consider the last two big directs we got last year, they were hour-long presentations. This may be the new standard of Nintendo Direct, where we're going to get some super directs, as I've been calling them, where there'll be a lot more announcements. Which makes sense now, because the Switch 2 also is handling third-party games way better. We're continually seeing a lot of really good ports. Pragmata has just come out and is reviewed really well on Switch 2. I haven't picked it up yet myself, but it looks really fun, and I'm very interested in that. Which I think is another point to be made here. While there hasn't been a lot of core-centric Nintendo things, in terms of my personal enjoyment of my Switch 2 over the last few months, I've been enjoying it. I've enjoyed Resident Evil, I'm playing Pokemon Champions now, I'm probably going to pick up Pragmata soon. So I've been enjoying stuff here, but to the point, there's a lot more third-party things to announce, so that's going to fill up these Nintendo Direct presentations. In the past, during the Switch era, Nintendo Directs had a lot of indie titles or smaller third parties or a lot of late ports. Now the Switch 2 is getting a lot of day-and-date ports, a lot of high-budget AAA efforts. There's more involvement from the bigger third parties here, so they're going to be more heavily involved. And because Nintendo's also taking a little bit more time here with these bigger directs, they're going to have more things to announce too. And I do think a big part to the show is going to be about celebrating Zelda's 40th anniversary, waiting to have that big direct to talk about Zelda, because they already had one that talked about Mario last September, that with this clear divide, makes sense. So to give you a solid answer on what it feels like the reason has been for why we haven't gotten a big direct yet, a lot of it has to do with how Nintendo has wanted to promote things surrounding the Mario Galaxy movie. Not just the movie itself and promoting that, but promoting the games surrounding it, like Mario Wonder, like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, but also allowing an opportunity for this great surprise with Star Fox. Now we'll see if the Star Fox report is true, but I'm kind of inclined to think it is, as I think a lot of you also are probably on the same page with this one. We'll see what happens. Then that's another reason to consider this. And then you also think about how Nintendo will then want to move on to Zelda stuff. Notice how a lot of Zelda conversations began shortly after the release of the movie. Like, we got all the interviews from Monolith Soft about their development with Zelda, and how we've got all these little tidbits about the Zelda movie. All this started immediately after the release of the Mario Galaxy movie. It does look like now things are transitioning over to the big Zelda focus. And so all these things, and I also gotta assume things happening behind the scenes, perhaps one game not being ready or another being pushed back, all that stuff ultimately left Nintendo to make the decision to hold off on the giant direct until later into the year, where they can really blow our socks off when this time comes. But I guess we'll see. We're now past the halfway point in April. We could just be talking about 6 weeks from now when this presentation will finally happen. And supposedly between now and then, we're getting the Star Fox reveal, and I assume promotion for this game to come out in June, and then also all the news on Yoshi Mysterious Book, and likely a variety of third-party things as well, perhaps even more. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.